honor and a delight to be with you all on this wonderful day in this beautiful city of Hyderabad. Roughly about 2.5 years back, Satya walked into my office and told me that, "Sir, please help me. We want to organize an event for innovation." I told Satya nicely, but nonetheless rather bluntly, "Satya, please don't waste your time and my time. There are quite a few events. There is no point doing one more event." And of course, Satya is Satya. So he was not discouraged. And he said, "Sir, I am not asking you to help me in one more innovation event, but I want you to help in creating one of its kind innovation event." So that was compelling. I kind of pulled my chair closer to him. "Tell me, what is that you have in mind?" And out of that came what you're all here today. Is it an innovation summit by academics for academics? Is it an innovation summit of the corporate sector, like the CII Innovation Summit? Is it a summit of the government? Is it a summit for the startups? Is it a hackathon? The answer to all those 5 questions, if it happens to be yes, 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 and yes, it is MeltingPot 2020. Right? So that is precisely, it is a platform where everybody comes together, and obviously being a platform, it will be of much larger impact. Melting pot is a word you don't find in the dictionary. Those of us who kind of landed in United States in 60s and 70s, we heard it the first time in United States. And when you walk into New York City, we felt it. That is melting pot. And if you go to Wikipedia, it will tell you that a set of heterogeneous cultures harmoniously working to create something of a larger value. And that is what Melting Point 2020 Innovation Summit is all about. We had the first event last year in Delhi, and we are having the second event in Hyderabad. And thank you all, amazing set of people. Many of you are assembled here, some of you could not make it, who have been helping us. Last 1 year, we have been bugging you a little bit, sometime with meetings, sometime with mails, sometime with telephone calls. And I think all of you who have contributed. And I do think we have an amazing event in the next 2 days. But what is important for us, or what is satisfying for us is, I am an IT guy. So we always look at IT examples. A company like Intel calls itself a platform company. Intel is not a very large company. It is not a $400 billion Walmart. It is not a $160, $70 billion Apple. It is just more like about $40, $50 billion. But still, as a platform, it has influenced nearly 5+ billion people on the planet. So that is the power of the platform. And we expect over the years, Melting Pot as a platform will become far more influential. Okay, so I think let me welcome you all for this wonderful 2 days. And to start the first session, let me invite Satya, the man who did everything behind, Mr. Satya Narayanan. I never had him in my class, but he's so nice. He keeps calling me his teacher. Thank you, Satya. Give him a big hand. Thank you. I think this is something very special, particularly in countries like India. I jokingly tell my students, we kind of end up teaching them for about 4 years in the undergraduate program. And for the next 40 years, they keep teaching us. And we actually charge them a fee for our teaching. They don't charge us a fee for their teaching, 40 years. Keep teaching, Satya. I think it's wonderful to have you here. And then, of course, we have our good friend, Mr. Mohan Reddy. Of course, I have told him I have come to his town. Please put your hands and welcome Mr. Mohan Reddy. The founder of Cyient. And, most of you in Hyderabad know him in so many contexts. Of course, many of you also know he was the past NASCOM president. And of course, for many of us, he has a special connection. He's one of the country's first master's thesis writer in the area of computer graphics, okay, way back in IIT Kanpur. And I think he's one person who also did something special to the Indian IT software services industry. To a large extent, they were focused on business. It's important to have, because the finance and all are the largest consumers of IT. But it is Mohan who saw the potential in engineering services, and he keeps doing that. And please kind of give him a big hand.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. So the organizers want to have a formal stuff. You want to have it now? Please. Then I start with my stuff. Okay, I start. Okay. So I just have only about 10 minutes. What I will do is I will leave you behind two interesting thoughts. Okay? The first thought is that, IT, people keep asking, what does IT have done? Maybe you are getting undue media coverage than what you deserve. Probably it is true that, IT has been getting undue attention, and then the folks in IT have been the folklore of the last 20 years. But I think underlying that is something very interesting, particularly for India. I will spend a few minutes what I call IT as innovation amplifier. The second thing I will talk about is, which is actually the theme of this conference itself, solving problems in India, not necessarily solving problems elsewhere. The other way of putting it is Indians solving problems in India. Okay, these are the two trends. Okay, so let me talk about the first one for a few minutes. What is the core competence of most of us who kind of took to computing in 60s? We started with adding reasonably large number of zeros and ones reasonably fast. Little later, we could add, subtract, multiply, divide, unreasonably large number of zeros and ones, and over a time at unreasonable speed. And little later, we could do it reliably, because every time we got the same results. And we could also do it affordably, okay? And little later, some people said that, look, adding multiplication is fine, but we also want to do with data. So we said we can store unreasonably large number of zeros and ones and retrieve them unreasonably fast. Again, reliably, accurately, and correctly. And little later, we said we can actually move these zeros and ones, extremely large numbers, across the planet, sometime to the moon and the Mars, at the speed of light, at near speed of light. Okay, so this is what we guys can do. But in the process, what happened is, we have ended up doing a lot more things than what we kind of started with. Some fellows took a sheet of paper, made it into zeros and ones, and said, you don't need a fax machine. You don't need a scanner. You don't need a printer. And little later, people said, I can do the same thing with sound. We can actually do a lot more things. And then we created something called MP3. And people anywhere in the planet could start their morning with Suprabhatam and maybe end with some arti. And in between can also listen to Bollywood, right? So what happened? We digitized sound, we digitized paper, we digitized media. So in the process, we were actually changing industry after industry. There was a great company called Kodak. And all of us, at least our generation, proudly used to capture the best moments of our life on a Kodak camera, which Kodak used to call it Kodak moment. But in the year 2009, Kodak had its Kodak moment. It filed for bankruptcy. right? That's what we, the IT guys, did. So we're changing governance, we're changing ticketing, we're changing transportation. So what is happening is, in the process, okay, so what started off as simple computing is changing industry after industry. It's humbling to see the impact IT could create. And just to give you some numbers, we had a thriving two T's. One was a tea that we call drinking tea, that used to be one of the largest exporters for several years, several decades. And then we also had, we had some people from Coimbatore, okay, starting from Coimbatore and Mumbai. We had another tea called textile. These two teas used to be the largest exporters for several decades. But quickly we changed it. In the last two decades, IT is the largest exporter, right? We have created about a $150 billion industry, 7.8% of GDP, and about 4.5 million jobs, right? But if you actually look behind why all these things could be possible was that what started off as a simple makemytrip.com could completely change the way travel industry works. And most of it is not by capital. Most of it is not necessarily by equipment, but by innovative use of technology. So what IT has actually done is, even if you go to many of the governments, innovation has completely changed the way government operates. So the role of IT has been enabling that innovation. I think the theme of the conference is innovation. And for many of us, IT is an enabler of innovation, amplifier of innovation. With IT, probably many of us as individuals could do much larger than even much of the largest corporations can do. And you actually see that much of the capital needs of IT industry has been much smaller. There is no way you could have grown such a large industry in any other area. I think that is something which is a very important part. So, and what is important is that, as Satya and I keep talking about it, particularly I find a lot of youngster students here, you have to now take it to the next level. You have to run 100 times faster than us. Okay, and you can do it, and I'm sure you will do it, and we all will be there to help you to kind of change this country. I don't know how many of you have noticed. The conference was supposed to start at 11. It started at 10:59 because we wanted to kind of give the message everywhere. Okay, so we have to do best. But to quote my good friend C.K. Prahlad, we have to look at next. So when everybody is assembled already, we don't have to wait for more time. We actually start even a minute earlier. So we would like to see innovation happening even in the way in which the very conference is delivered. You will see more and more of it. I think that's one message I want you to leave. The second thing is, particularly for you, the youngsters, your time has come. With all humility, okay, so don't get arrogant. Continue to be simple. Continue to be humble. Okay, we can change the world. Okay, if you really look at our generation, many of us went to United States in 60s and 70s. We worked for some of the best universities. We worked for some of the best corporations. We were solving global problems, mostly in United States and Western Europe. And of course, some of us have come back. Okay, we contributed a lot. That's one reason why it actually shows up. See, today you find the two of the iconic American corporations, Microsoft and Google, are run by people. One of them happens to be from this very city called Satya, and the other person from my town called Chennai. He's called Sundar. And those of you who are kind of familiar with, jokingly we have been telling, we have to put somebody with a name called Shivam in another iconic company like Apple, then we will have Satyam Shivam Sundaram, right? So hopefully, okay? So that's happening, right? So what happens is that when something like that, it's a nice thing which we did. But I think in 90s and the last decade, people like Mohan had done an amazing job. So we are working for American corporations and the European corporations. and solving the global problems, quite often sitting in India, part of the outsourcing. But I think what happened from 2010 onwards is the one which is most satisfying to me, and I expect many of you to take it forward 100 times more. There are three parts, okay? One, Indians are solving India's problem. The second, Indians are solving problems in India which actually have a global market. Third, we are actually taking some global solutions and global problems, tweak them for India at a dramatic price performance standards. 100-fold reduction in price, a 10-fold improvement in performance, etc. So let me kind of leave a couple of examples so that, okay, see, that one of the prime example often get quoted. This is something which even the political class really likes because it has made a difference. I still remember I had to kind of go and make an argument with one of the former railway ministers. So they all thought that railway reservation system, it's an expensive one, it's all urban, etc., etc. I was kind of arguing with the minister in my own way, saying that, look, sir, as a professor in IIT Kanpur, if I want to make a reservation, I can actually request my peon or somebody who is an assistant in the project, etc., to go to the railway station, make a reservation and come back. He was going 16 kilometers up and 16 kilometers down. A 60-plus kg body was going up and down, whereas what was needed was 60 bytes to move at electronic speed, okay? And I said, look, if the same assistant has to make a reservation for himself, he or she has to lose 1 day's wage. And that is something which political class immediately understood. It makes a difference. And that's the reason why railway reservation has been a phenomenal success. Just to give you some numbers, we actually book more tickets on railways in 1 day than the total number of tickets booked in France in a whole year, at 1/10 the cost, okay? So kind of a phenomenal performance at phenomenal cost reduction, okay? That is something which we have done. But I think what is important is we need to do much more of it. See, there is something called Travel Khana, just for fun, See, travelkhana.com offers a very interesting service. Thanks to IT, you can do it. If you give the PNR, it will make a web service. And, a million requests it can handle in a second. It will immediately kind of find out which is the train you are going, which are the railway stations, which are kind of good for your breakfast, for your lunch, for your dinner. It offers 3 options, 29 rupees, 49 rupees, 69 rupees. You can choose any one of them. And as you travel, you will be delivered at your seat the option of your choice for the breakfast and the lunch. And after you consume it, the boy or the girl who gives you will give you a mobile phone. You press the button, so automatically it is charged to you, and the person also gets the money. Okay, it's been kind of doing well. Whether Travel Khana itself will succeed, I don't know. But somebody will succeed, because 33 million people travel every day in long-distance trains, right? And you'll be surprised that the investment needed to serve up, to kind of put this service in place is a pittance, okay? So Indians can solve India's problem. Just give you one example. I can go on and on. The idea is not to tire you, but it is important for you to kind of realize. And Red Bus, which has now become a global operation, okay, essentially organized small bus operators with 2 buses, 6 buses to 6,000 buses. Okay, so let me kind of share something very unusual, okay, but it's also important. Here it is not even an Indian, happens to be a Stanford undergraduate student, who happens to be a sociology student at Stanford. She had heard of this interesting stuff called a country called India, and interesting things happening. She landed in Bangalore. So some reason, like we are sufficiently networked in so many circles, she kind of landed in my office, and she wanted to do something interesting in India. And those of you who come from Bangalore, there is a slum called Ejipura. She was fascinated by the way the maid servants were using a mobile phone. See, they're illiterate. The only thing they know is the 10 digits, but they were actually able to do lots of stuff. and they were using something called missed call. So idea is that you don't want to spend money. You press 1, and you know what happens is it is actually calling your husband, and they will immediately hang up because the husband would know that he has to come and bring his cycle so that she can be taken home. And looking at it, she slowly said that, look, this is very interesting. We have never heard of this missed call anywhere else. And she came up with a nice service of offering banking services on a missed call. That means if you press 1, you will get to know the bank balance. If you press 2, it will tell you something else, etc. I happen to be in the board of Bank of India, so I kind of suggested the general manager IT to give her an opportunity. It started in Bank of India. It is there everywhere else. Every bank offers a missed call service. What is interesting is she has now moved to Thailand and Malaysia, and she tells me the missed call business is a $1 billion opportunity. A missed call business is a $1 billion opportunity today. Okay, Valerie is her name, and she does something interesting. Okay, so this is what IT can do. I think that is the kind of stuff I want to really look at it. So we can solve interesting problems in India, and the fact is whatever Valerie did in India is applicable in Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, Vietnam, so it's going places. Okay, I think that is what the power of innovation is all about. So I want you to keep these two messages in mind. Finally, we are actually solving our problems. It is important to solve others' problems. It is important to get foreign exchange. It's important to create jobs. But I think nothing can be more satisfying than you making a difference to your neighborhood. Okay, I think that is happening. Second thing is, IT can actually amplify innovation in a way that is unprecedented, and I want you to take every opportunity to make use of that. So that is the context for this innovation conference. The amount of innovation we could do was an epsilon, but I want the youngsters in this country to make a delta. You all remember epsilon is not sufficient, but delta will make a difference, okay? Make the delta difference. And that is the message, because professors have to leave a homework, right? The homework is make a delta difference to your own neighborhood. Thank you, and thanks Satya for the opportunity. So I will now request Mr. Mohan Reddy, and as I said, the founder and CEO of Cyient. It used to be called Infotech Enterprises earlier.
Thank you.
And it's kind of interesting how much he has done. And he has worn many, many hats, also as the NASCOM, etc. Over to you, Mohan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Well, good morning to all of you. At the outset, let me congratulate Satya for taking this initiative of MeltingPot 2020, and also thank Professor Sadagopan to give that lending hand, because I haven't known many people like Professor Sadagopan is, who have tremendous amount of knowledge, passion, all about information technology, and more interestingly about innovation. Professor Sadagopan talked about two things that he wanted to say today, but I have three things to talk about this morning to all of you. First and the foremost is, I'll talk a little bit about technology. I keep saying we're all very lucky people. Lucky people because we are born at the time where technology is its best. Would we say Satya, did I get your name right? Who is 15-year-old, is more lucky than people like me who are well past our 60s. I don't think that's very true, because for the simple reason I keep saying that it's attitude which makes the difference. It's not the age which makes the difference. Having said that, why am I saying that the technology at its best, or the times are its best? Is because for centuries we have seen technology changing lives of people. There were technology revolutions, industry revolution 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and so on and so forth. Every time an industrial revolution came by, the well-being of humankind improved, the economic benefits to humankind improved. But there's a key difference at this point of time compared to what happened in the previous several hundred years. The difference is the acceleration with which technology is moving was unparalleled. There's no denying that there is certainly a certain amount of uncertainty too that goes along with it, which then gets coined into a word called VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I will not get into that, but the fact of life is that there is tremendous amount of change that's happening today because of technology. This change, why is it happening so well, is I think Professor Sadagopan alluded to several factors of it, is I think this digital world that's getting created. In the 60s and 70s, when Professor Sadagopan talked about he and me, we're almost contemporaries, going to school and learning all about computers. I still recall the computer that I was handling for the first time, or a first time I saw in my life, was occupying the size of this room. It was an IBM 7044 at IIT Kanpur. And in front of the computer center used to be a beautiful water fountain. Water used to dance up and down. And I keep saying that dumb people like me used to think what an architectural marvel it was. But the truth of the matter was, it was actually for cooling the computer center. The water fountain was there in front. And what was the power of the computer? It was less than what all of you have in your pockets or in your bags. So the digital world started off with the computing power coming into our hands. The second phase, the 70s and 80s, saw internet proliferating our lives. Everywhere we went, we got connected together. Connectivity is the one which made a lot of difference. A third round came in because of the sensors. We all thought, sensors were huge, sensors were expensive. They're ugly, difficult to handle. The latest one I saw was one which was on my wife's shoulder. I was surprised myself, which was the size of a 1 rupee coin. And she did not even to loosen her blouse. It was sitting underneath her blouse. And what was it doing? Measuring her blood sugar level every 15 minutes for 15 continuous days. That's the size of sensors that have come by. That's the type of information that the sensors can gather at this point of time. So, but the fourth phase, which is equally important right now, it's not that just the sensor, is the fact that you have now ability to gather the data and thereafter analyze it. And importantly, thereafter put filters of how intelligent that data is and get meaningful results which could be helpful to the mankind, makes this world so different. What are the reasons why this why is this getting so amplified? The first is I believe that look, technology continues to become cheaper and cheaper. Moore's law 1974, 1975 said the power of the silicon chip will become double every year. 18 months, he said it will become half in terms of size. He said it will become half in terms of its cost. That doesn't seem to stop at all. It continues to be at the same pace, if not at a much faster pace than 18 months. The second one that we see is the connected world. We all talked about people being connected. That's past. It's not just people. People and things are being connected together. More importantly, at one point of time when, again, Professor Sadagopan and I went to school, to the universities, technology was all in the West. There was nowhere else. But today, it's not just in the West, everywhere in the world, but it's developing developed countries, or countries which are still economically backward. We see lots of innovations coming out of countries in South Africa, in Africa. So that's the third reason why we think there's an amplification happening. And the fourth one, which is my favorite, is people are getting extremely familiar with technology very, very early in their lives. I have this interesting video. I was in Uzbekistan about 2 weeks back on a holiday. And I saw a 2-year-old young kid chasing a 2-year-old. Don't ask me whether it was a girl or a boy, but that's different. With an iPhone trying to take the picture of this young little child. Seriously, I have that video with me, and this was not pre-rehearsed. I was just walking like a tourist around, and I saw this, and I found this interesting. 2-year-old kids now getting familiarity with technology like cameras. Professor Sadagopan talked about Kodak and the demise of Kodak, but look at the Kodak story, leave it apart. People like me first touched a Kodak camera when we were 30 years or 35 years old. But today, the familiarity of technology makes it extremely positive to ensure that there is this acceleration happening. Yet another factor which we think that is extremely important right now is that technologies are playing on each other. A good example is look at Uber and Paytm. Would Uber been successful had we not had a payment gateway? If Paytm, a payment gateway, would not have been possible if Uber would not have been there. So technologies are having a multiplier effect. The sum total of it, therefore, is that the digital world and the fact that there is a number of key levers which are working together in unison is creating tremendous amount of opportunities, and so are challenges. People say existing companies do have challenges in terms of what they could do in terms of innovation. Very honestly, I think it's not necessarily just the challenge for the existing companies. It could be for anybody who does not want to change. To me, the key driver to it is change. The world is changing, so therefore we need to change. So long as people are changing today, there is tremendous amount of opportunity. The change could be in terms of, what is the technology of the future? If you're still stuck in COBOL days or Visual Basic days, not learning all about Pythons or the Rs, and I don't know what's the new programming language today is, then we are stuck. That opportunity does not come. It could be definitely construed to be a challenge, but then if you learn that, then it becomes an opportunity. So the first point I like to say is, we live in a world which is full of change, creates tremendous amount of opportunities for all of us. An opportunity which is coming in also because of, I think, again, Professor Sadagopan talked about a 1.2 billion population in India. An Indian economy which is at $3 trillion. A leadership which is talking about make in India, smart cities, and so on and so forth. So all that put together provides a big opportunity for all of us. The second point I like to make is that lots of startups that I see in India, that's been my favorite topic of the recent past. I'm very thrilled. I'm very motivated seeing youngsters. We saw one young man just now, Aguresh. But last week, I also had an opportunity, not last week, about 3 weeks, I believe it is, since I handled a small little event, which absolutely surprised me, so it'll surprise you too. It was, I didn't like the caption all right, but still it was okay. The caption was called, Young Entrepreneurs Meets the Legend. The legend part was not what I liked. But more importantly, the format was that they would not ask me questions, but I would ask them questions. We were very impressed with the irrigation, and we certainly, again, congratulations to you. But who are the 3 entrepreneurs that I had on my dais? A young man called Saad Nazar. Saad Nazar, 15-year-old. When did he stop going to school? 10 years. From last 5 years, he's been getting home educated. Who was my second, what is he doing at this point of time? He does a startup which is to do with driverless. No, I can't call it driverless. He doesn't want to call that driverless. It's basically an automated vehicle. It's a driverless automated vehicle that is there. Saad Nazar has 2 partners. One is a PhD from and a professor at IIIT Bengaluru. The other is a serial entrepreneur. So one question for me to Saad was, Saad, do you feel insecure handing 2 senior guys along with you? He said, no, sir, they respect me for my knowledge. So age does not matter. Knowledge is something which is important for all of us. That's the message I have for my friends who are all young and doing startups at this point of time. My second, and I'll stop there, I won't go to the third. My second young entrepreneur on the dais, a guy called Jwala, Harshvardhan Jwala, Harsh. And the impressive part of Harsh is, what is he trying to do? He has got a startup right now which can detect and diffuse minefields across the world, social cars. So the fact is that these are the youngsters who are there, and these are the youngsters who are taking different types of initiatives. But to me, I think what is important for all the startups is please get into deep technology. Deep technology to me is more and more into domain expertise, industry knowledge. And there are so many problems that are there around us at this point of time, which require to be solved with technology. But you and I may not have the complete knowledge of that domain. Here's an example where we worked on the recent past. It's a precision agriculture. What does it do? You fly a drone. Drone has a camera on it, and the camera is taking pictures of the complete farm. And wherever it sees that the leaf has a little bit of a pest, primarily how it is detecting is, it's sending back the data. There's 6 million other leaf types which are there at the backend server. And the backend server is comparing and saying, is this a clean leaf or not? If the leaf is not right, then it stops momentarily. But then at the same time, there is one more drone which is flying behind it with about 3 different types of pesticides trying to spray the pest on that particular leaf. That's precision agriculture. Look at the technology that's there. Drones, imaging, and thereafter, of course, precisely trying to get the pesticide. I asked the CEO of this company, saying that, look, why are you not disturbing your own business? Are you not disrupting your own business? Because our belief is, at this point of time, the use of pesticide will come down by about 60% once we start using this drone technology, the precision agriculture. He told me that, Mohan, if I don't do it, somebody else will do it. I'm trying to just guard at least that 40% of my business. But importantly, the point I like to make is, unless you got that agriculturist into the equation, we couldn't have definitely found how this problem could be implemented. There could be many other examples that could be there in terms of saying we not only need to have technology as the backbone, but equally important is that we need to have deep understanding of the problem and a solution to the problem. We have seen a number of other examples where people of the recent past, I dabble around quite extensively. I'm sure some of you are familiar that I work intensely with T-Hub and Hyderabad Angels, the TIE, and so on and so forth. Well, we run into a number of these startups. And one thing they all tell me is all about food tech. What are you trying to do? Food tech. What is food tech all about? I gather meals from restaurants and distribute to the customers on the other side. How are you unique? No, sir, I can do it faster than the others. What do you think you can do? I can probably have better vehicles than what my competitor has. I think in Hyderabad, there are at least 100, if not more than that, in this particular area. But the fact is, I'm not saying I'm not running down the food tech or this platform for providing meals to people. I'm saying there's a lot more of deep technology behind it, which can be definitely used in making sure you create more value. An example is, you got all the customer profiles. Can you do predictive analytics to find out who are the people, what type of people eat, at what times do they eat? All that would come out of analytics. Or you can have AI engines which are running to tell you all about what type of people are there. You can sell the data thereafter. So therefore, the second point I'd like to make for my audience this morning is deep technology is something which is important for making successful companies, successful, sustainable companies. A third point I'd like to make is that I think the ecosystem in India requires improvement. We certainly have seen in the last 5 years, certainly there's a tremendous amount of change, especially since we talk about Hyderabad so intensely. I saw a change in Hyderabad in the last 3 years itself. We've created a number of incubators. Within the incubators, just not co-working space. We've tied up with a number of mentors, mentor organizations which are helping them out. We're tied up with the best of education institutions. Professor PJN is here from IIIT Hyderabad, or IIT Hyderabad, or ISB, Nalsar, and so on and so forth, who not only provide technology, but also provide the help in terms of the support services. And we now have a fund which is going on to make sure that you probably do early level funding for these new entrepreneurs. But I think what we need for sure is that you will not build Silicon Valleys around the world by just focusing on just the infrastructure, or just saying R&D and their R&D will work in particular institutions. But I think what we need is certainly an ecosystem which will ensure that there will be an intense interaction between the various stakeholders. That, I think, is the key for all of us to succeed as we move forward, including the society itself. To me, one of the biggest stumbling blocks that we have is also the society, because my parents, your parents, all believe that, look, entrepreneurship is not the key to go forward. A job which is there in large corporations, whether it's an MNC which pays you $100,000, I believe there's some of the offers that are going around in town right now, is something people like to do. But then, that's not going to solve many problems of life. That might just give you a job. But I like people to become job givers as opposed to just being job seekers. And that, I think, requires lots of changes in the ecosystem again. We are trying to work very intensely in terms of the academia industry connect, which is also still requires to be done much more intensely. We have seen people saying that, industry is very short term, whereas academia is long term. My humble submission to people is, it can be long term, I don't dispute that, but certainly monetize the work that you're doing. On one side, we say we only spend 0.8% of the GDP in research in this country, whereas countries like China are at 2% or 2.8% at this point of time. I can crib about it, but at the same time, I'm saying even that 0.8%, can that be monetized? So therefore, the third point I have is to build the ecosystem. So 3 things that are there with me for you to think about. And as you continue your day, talk to other people in terms of knowledge sharing, in terms of making sure that you network, is to see where are these opportunities? How do we get into more deep technologies? And thirdly is, how do we help support the ecosystem? So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Satya, for giving me this opportunity.
That is your
So
reputation.
thank you, Mohan, and please let me join again in giving him a big applause. Thank you. Of course, the next speaker for this session is Satya. So kind of all of you know, but just I thought that, a few things we should know special. In fact, one of the well-known brands is actually owned by him, but particularly many of the younger generation would know. It's called Career Launcher. Of course, nowadays it becomes CL, okay? CL Educate, etc. So, he could have easily been part of McKinsey, with an IMB degree easily. But he chose to be different, and he kind of decided to make it different. And one of the nice things he keeps doing all through is innovation is part of his DNA. So the way he interacts, the way he puts things together, and you will actually see a lot of little things as we see this event together. And I think let us have the pleasure of listening to him for the next about 20 minutes. Over to you, Satya.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to do a small poll on how many of us were together in the Melting Pot version 1 last year. Okay, so that's about 25, 30. I must start by thanking you for continuing your support, and I'm very excited to see our journey gather mass, gather momentum, and I also, when I look at it closely, I also see that the quality of participation also we have grown 10x from last year. So I think congratulations to our team. I merely end up getting a lot of credit, but a whole lot of work has done by the entire team. And I would like you to put your hands together for a round of applause for the team that has gone. And when I say the team, I also include the steering committee members, which includes Rishi, which includes Anindya from IIT Kanpur, Professor Rishikesh Krishnan. Since we know closely, we use the word Professor Rishikesh Krishnan. I am Indore director. Anindya Chatterjee, professor at IIT Kanpur. Professor Sadagopan. What are the names I'm missing? And they've been extremely supportive in our journey for the last almost 18 months since we conceptualized MeltingPot. And what I'm going to submit to you is that today we are surrounded with significant amount of wisdom, and I am merely trying to stay focused on making progress every day, every week, so that when we look back year after year, it looks like a significant progress. So I'm going to focus a lot more on nuts and bolts because of a couple of reasons which I will cover here. And I have been very mindful of the theme itself, saying solving problems in India through innovation. I have not stopped at saying solving India's problem through innovation. I think the problem-solving location has been moving to India. It looks infinitesimally small in all the frustrations that we deal with as officers, entrepreneurs, policymakers, etc. But when we log out and log in after 3 years, people, those friends of ours who go out and come back, they find the change quite significant. I'm sure you agree with me. I'm going to start with...
Innovation has been the only enabler of the emergence of regions and countries.
This is where we started last year. Can we go back? And I'm wanting us to revise. We started with a very conceptual framework for us to be led by about 12 months ago. I want us to look at where we started, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of a progress report and where we plan to head over the next 3 years.
Innovation has been the only enabler of the emergence of regions and countries over the past many centuries. Innovation collaboration between corporations and institutions had played a major role in the emergence of Europe, USA, and now Asia. Worldwide Academia Industry Network, or WAIN, brings together a host of stakeholders who play a crucial role in creating a fertile innovation ecosystem. On one hand, universities and schools form an important part of the WAIN system with a huge supply of youth and innovation talent. On the other hand, corporations bring in their own expertise of innovation along with the demand for innovation, projects, funding, experienced mentors, and even CSR resources where necessary. And in between academia and industry are the other components that will enable this network to incubate innovation. A corporate projects office is dedicated to generate live projects in the network, while the licensing office brings in the expertise to monetize the IP created in any part of WAIN. The IP patent attorney members bring in the strategic value of IP protection for all relevant innovators. WAIN includes industry bodies, edu-promoting societies, NGOs that help evangelize innovation and entrepreneurship across the globe. Entrepreneurs, angels, investors are all integral to the platform and will enable easy access to capital and mentorship. Government labs, departments, schemes, and initiatives are a part of the WAIN system too. The WAIN members also benefit from other privileges such as talent recruitment, fellowships, consulting, enhancing digital persona, innovation networking, and learning from other WAIN members' expertise. Welcome to WAIN, a worldwide network aiming at 1 million innovators by 2020 who are solving the social needs in a sustainable and rewarding manner. Come, let's make it happen for a better tomorrow.
So it I'm sure is a repetition for many of you. However, this is something that I would have referred to and seen 1,000 times in the last 1 year, because this conceptual model has to be made real. And to do that, the various bubbles that need to be filled in with experts in that area, we need to bring them onto the platform so that the focus continues to remain on the young entrepreneur inside a university, or could be a young innovator inside a large corporation, or a startup who has no resources but a cubicle in an incubation center. And how can he leverage a very powerful, very potent ecosystem for him to keep going ahead? So translating this vision into the reality is what we are doing. And there is a reference to something that Professor Gadi might make in his conversation, where he talks about the garbage can concept, where we don't want to be solving a problem where it doesn't exist, which means this approach, this effort must solve the problem of each one of us here in the room who is a potential stakeholder. So my submission to you is, if any pain point of yours is not getting addressed, is not getting magnified enough, or you think it can be made better, I would love to hear from you so that we include it in our agenda for execution over the next year. And this is a little bit of a progress that we've made in the last 12 months. It just gives you how we have populated the universities with some very reputed universities now, how we are looking at corporates with some early successes. Some of them names are missing because we still don't have the permission to use their brands. How we are bringing in investment partners. Today, I'll share a little bit with you. How are we reaching the higher education institution through an EPSI as a society? How Anand and Anand, the leading patent and IP attorneys, are now on the platform in their consulting role. How we've been able to bring someone like T-Hub and maybe a few more from the institutions. How do we aim to bring the alumni to bear upon this in various forms, mentoring, funding, and if it is valid for your institution, we would love to do that. Learning, training. We hope to bring experts in every area to come and be a part of the ecosystem, and then while they progress towards their goals, they help the entire ecosystem and every member there, and the heart of it, in my view, is this magician called innovator. If we can make that happen, and I think it'll be a wonderful journey. Today we are very fortunate that we have, like Arjuna had a very tall stalwarts as gurus to guide him, we are surrounded by very wise, very tall-statured gurus around us who have seen it, who have seen very closely the way some of the developed economies progressed between 60s to 90s, who have seen the transitions from the early stage that Mohan was talking about of IIT Kanpur, the computer lab, to where it is now. But by taking all of that, a lot of us, and this is one room where I find myself to be young. Today when I go back to CL Educate, I'm among the older guys in the organization, but some place like this makes me feel more like an Arjuna than the Bhishma. But the job that we have is perhaps be very attentive, and each one of them is here in the hall. And we are so blessed to be able to bring their wisdom, their knowledge, and their passion to give back to the society. And in my view, entrepreneurship has always been a journey where you give unconditionally to the society. And society is so overwhelmed that each member of the society comes back and leaves something on the table, and you take that and continue your virtuous cycle. We are very fortunate to be here, and you will hear all of them talk about the larger picture, the big picture, the strategic views that we need to take, and what to do at the nuts and bolts. If we take them in, and if we are executionists par excellence, I think we increase the chances of accelerating towards the inevitable that the other film spoke about in the morning. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of Melting Pot or Wayne Connect? In my view, when underconfident to come up here and present in English kind of a student from a faraway university, he accesses whatever he wants to convert his idea into an executed project, innovation, and some corporate discovers him or an investor discovers him and he brings value to the society. I think that's the heart of this entire initiative. Democratizing opportunity for every child, every youth in the world. And India perhaps is our first massive, of course, innovation sandbox. It's the biggest innovation sandbox that you can imagine. But even then, even within India, there's a reason why we moved Melting Pot from Delhi to Hyderabad. We want to move a few things in Hyderabad this year. Can we take it to a Bangalore next year? Which means even India is a collection of maybe 4 or 5 innovation sandboxes. And can we take roots in each place, make a deep impact by bringing all the collaborators, all the stakeholders to come onto this democratized platform. That's the purpose. Let each person focus on his or her best capabilities. I think our life is finite. The greatest handicap that I always find as an entrepreneur is not that I am short on money in the bank, I have only 24 hours in a day. And that's true for each one of us. If that's the case, if the Weizmann Institute of Science or a Stanford Incubation Center or some other university called Fudan that I visited a few years ago in China, if you find something phenomenal in that place, can we get that to bear upon our effort? If I find someone in some place, can we bring that person onto the platform so that everybody else need not become him or her, but can cross-leverage strengths and go towards the purpose? That's an important thing. And like I said, impacting at the grassroots, the society is the only way any entrepreneurship has been sustainable, and you need to do it all the time. That's what we will focus on. A little bit of a progress report. This is what one needs looking at so that it's not sloganeering and going away. Am I measuring the progress that I am making or we are making? This is where we were last year. So if somebody were to ask me, Satya, how would you define that we are progressing? I would say, okay, one very audacious goal, sir, that we took was that can we make 1 million entrepreneurs, innovators, researchers benefit from the platform? What's the outcome? We will measure. It always is going to be a mixed bag of successes. But what are the 4 or 5 things that we are likely to, we will look at? I'm saying, how many innovators are there on the platform? Number 2, I'm sure you're aware of it. There was a research report in 2010, it must have come many times later as well, which said that 6 out of the 10 most sought after jobs of 2010 did not exist in 2004. And if we take that every decade, chances are that it's been true for the last 100 or 200 or 500 years. Which means, while we innovate, while we create knowledge, we also need to make sure those skills are moving out and youngsters are able to pick up those skills. And that itself is a massive job. We are saying that can we do that? Number 3, what is the knowledge creation in a measurable way? Papers published. School children are going to conferences abroad. 9th grade children, 10th grade children. Can we make that happen? How many IPs are getting registered? What is the patent progress that we are making? That's the 3rd one. Number 4, we would want this platform to be able to bring money and put it on the table for institutions, researchers, innovators, again, to not worry about money. It's a very small start. We started with an intent last year. We made a small progress. We want to progress there. And this could go in the form of scholarships, in the form of junior innovator fellowships, senior research fellowships. Anything that the corporate wants to come up with, we're saying we'll make it happen. It'll be a transparent dashboard where you can see the beneficiary, you can connect with him, you can go and do whatever you want to do, you can do. Because India is the first country that has legally given CSR a mandate. You need to do it. On an average in the US is 1% of PAT. We have done 2% of PAT. That adds up to about 16,000 crores. Every CEO in this country has reached there by dint of his effort, hard work, and education. We have a natural benefit there. 33 to 40% of CSR money is going into education. Can we get that to come here and impact this? We're going to look at. Last is, how many are getting to market? We want to focus on that. That's where innovation is. So education moves to research, moves to innovation, moves to market and impact, and then its success hopefully comes and funds one of these things. So these are some of the things that we are measuring ourselves with. I'm sticking my neck out and saying, I think even if we fail this, it will not be something that we need to be ashamed of, but I'm putting it out there and we will look at it. Where I'm saying 1 million entrepreneurs, 100,000 new skills that we want. When I say this, I'm talking about many of these things that we are hearing for the first time in the last 6 months, a year, or 2 years. Can we create a very high quality IP and patent regime and reach those numbers? Can we bring about 100 crores? It's a very small figure. That's not even 1% of just the CSR budget. I'm not counting the marketing budget, which is, digital innovation is very central part of the marketing head's pain. I'm not counting the R&D budgets. I'm just talking about 100 crores can we bring in and democratize it, which means I will give it blindly, just based on the quality of the student. Eminent people form the jury, they approve, and the money it gets transferred. Last evening, some very moving examples that Shoumya was giving of what he does at IIT Bombay. And if that bright child who gets to IIT Bombay, if she has to drop out because she doesn't have a couple of lakhs of rupees, I think it's a bit of a shame on all of us. Or if we do it, I would want to stay with a positive script. If we do it, it's a matter of deep satisfaction for all of us. So that's 2020. 2018, we want to get there. One of the key tasks that we are putting, which is a new initiative, is, and you will see focus on how do we learn from Israel as an ecosystem. We have a session today. Next one entire year with the help of a lot of Israeli experts and our own academicians, entrepreneurs, CEOs who have reasonable amount of experience on the Israel front. Can we bring them all together to learn and make a couple of success stories before 2018 melting pot is one of the immediate goals, but I think there is a lot, in my view, that we can do with each other as two countries. That is one of the things that I'm kind of putting on the table. We will expand it after this has become successful over the next year or two. So 17, this is where we are today. Last year we had 800 innovators on the platform. Today on the Wayne Connect, you have 13,600 innovators. We have done about 4,000 new skills and new universities kind of trainings in the last 1 year. About 100 plus papers, publishing, etc. We have done. We have put them out. Couple of patents. You will see one or two of those being presented by the professors or innovators today and tomorrow. Funding score is still 0. Hopefully, we will make our debut and enable a couple of entrepreneurs over the next 12 months. We are creating a democratized platform for funding. It's called the Wayne India Fund, where the beneficiaries can put out their what they need. Corporates can come and choose what they want to fund. Hopefully, this is something that we will succeed in, but we will stay very close and do hands-on curation of this. We are talking to CEOs personally, and some of them have been extremely supportive. These are some of the ideas that we are pursuing. Some of these ideas have come from people sitting here. For instance, some very exciting thing that I got to hear, sir, from Anindya. Is Anindya here? Professor Anindya Chatterjee, IIT Kanpur. He said, Satya, can we put together a faculty travel fellowships, where if we can create a list of 20, 25 well-renowned faculty members globally, and they need to come. If they're teaching at a institute in Indore or Bangalore or Chennai or Calcutta, this institution can take care of his or her stay, etc. But if we can put together a travel fellowships where their travel is taken care of, I thought it was a very simple but brilliant idea that can enable capacity building. Is an important task that we have. The moment we know what is to be done, and those who have done it, been there, they come and guide us, it can be very powerful. So, bunch of things. We already are finding support from the corporate side. We are talking about raising in all about 20 crores this year and channelizing it into different application areas, including skills, research and innovations, which has further subparts, faculty and academics. It could be curriculum design. It could be going online for some universities. And education fee support, like the one that we were having a conversation with a senior dean at IIT Bombay. So, some examples of our early progress. We have approximately 3,000-4,000 scholarships, fellowships, commitments from corporates. You will hear more about it, and all of these would go. For example, the HDFC Capital is talking about doing, they are a $1.5 billion real estate fund, and they're talking about smart homes using civil tech, and they are saying that it will be a challenge which will be funded by them. Departments of civil engineering and there and thereabouts, anyone can participate. The top 25 will have a way to do a bunch of things and scholarships and so on. Your Nest is giving scholarships on IoT. HDFC has already committed, the parent entity, 500 scholarships from their CSR for children wanting to pursue engineering. There is a PSU, we don't yet have the formal approval on paper, wanting to give 2,500 scholarships for students inside engineering colleges wanting to pursue research and innovation, and the pilot is going to happen this year and they will scale that. We have also put our own CSR money into this for senior research fellowships in leading institutions for PhD students. And whatever they get as their research money from the institution, can we subsidize that or can we supplement that? That is something that we are wanting to do. So that brings me to the end of my session. As I mentioned, this is a collective effort. I just have stuck my neck out and said, let's do it. Some parts of it might look audacious. Some parts of it might look ridiculous. Some parts of it might look irrelevant. However, please feel free at home. Walk up, WhatsApp, tell us what better we can do, and we'll be absolutely delighted to be as close to the bullseye as possible every moment that we are putting our efforts. Thank you very much.